Shaka boom. Shakalaka boom. You're tuned in to the Free Range Human
Double
Show.
shakalaka there.
Boom shakalaka, double shakalaka.
Yeah.
Boom. Here goes the dynamite, or there goes the dynamite. Your daily dose of reality radio. The Free Range Human Show of choice. This is the Clay Edwards Show. I'm, of course, Clay Edwards, and that other lovely, sexy voice you hear over there, that is the soothing sounds of crooner, troubadour, Mr. Matthew Bishop of The Full Story, our 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. hour, Monday through Friday host here at WYAB. Matt was on a topic that I planned on starting my show with this morning, so I asked him to sit in with us. And let's continue the conversation because he literally ran out of time.
I did. I wasn't even paying attention. I was so involved in trying to talk about theories that it's like, oh, the time was already 6:55, and Matt will be mad at me about running into the hour. But
it happens to the best and worst of us. So trust me, I do it regularly and often. But we are going to start the show here in just a second. After I get through a little housekeeping, we're going to start the show talking about the United Healthcare CEO who got assassinated in broad daylight in Manhattan yesterday.
Midtown
Absolutely
Manhattan.
Something out of a movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
This will be a Lifetime movie or a Tubi movie by the end of the week.
It will.
A very insane situation. But first, don't forget, guys, if you want to chime in this morning, I want to hear you all's theories on this. I mean, surely you got them. So the Mazda of Jackson phone line is 601-879-0002. Speaking of guns, the Guns and Gear text line is 769-241-1944. Real quick, let me tell you about Mazda Jackson before we get rolling this morning. Of course, we are streaming live on WYAB.com. The TuneIn app and Alexa, just search WYAB if you just want to do the audio only and you want to listen to the rest of the host here throughout the day. It's a great way to do it if your vehicle is out of range or you're in your house and don't have a home radio, because really who has a home stereo anymore with an FM dial on it anyway. We are streaming in 4K video, lovely 4K. I look phenomenal in 4K. I was made for 4K, or 4K was made for me.
I was made for radio. So, this whole idea of putting the cameras in, you're just messing me up here, That's why I got into radio.
I can put them both on me, more on me. That's what the audience wants, right?
That's right.
That's what you just have to tell yourself anyway when you do this.
That's right.
There has to be a certain level of narcissism
you have to.
that comes with this. We are in 4K video on Save JXN, at Save JXN on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and the Elon Musk-owned X, formerly known as Twitter. So if you want to watch there. And
when are we going to stop saying formerly Twitter? When is that going to officially end? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. I don't do it very often. Every now and then, I was in my mind, I was being facetious.
Of course. I'm saying you still see it in news articles, though, right? They still put it in news. Like, when are we going to officially say, okay, it's X now? I don't know when that date is going to happen.
Are you migrating over to Blue Sky?
Blue Sky? I'm getting there,
I will not be.
Yeah.
I will not be. All the left-wing Angeratic journalists left Twitter, so they were going to Blue Sky. That's Jack.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Jack Dorsey.
Dorsey, that's his new thing. And I'm not a Jack Dorsey hater, so to say. The OG Jack Dorsey, who was about free speech and all that stuff. But with that said, all your Ashton Pittmans, Mississippi Free Press people of the world, and I'm just thinking about local lefty nut jobs, rainbow supremacist. They said they announced they were leaving X and that they would be going over to Blue Sky, but of course they didn't delete their profile, so they haven't really gone anywhere.
Right.
Anyway, but they always talk about misinformation and disinformation.
Right.
Well, all of the misinformation and disinformation on X, formerly known as Twitter, has now migrated over to Blue Sky.
Of course.
Because it's all left-wing propaganda.
That's what it is. And, hey, everybody has to have their platform. Especially the liberals, they can't stand anybody disagreeing with them. So they have to have their safe space. So I say give it to them. Less of them on X. I have to hear from them, the better, from my opinion.
Absolutely. Well, you know what's funny about that, though, is they say that. They do want the friction.
Yeah.
They do want the drama.
They have nothing else to complain about. They didn't have no one call you. They can't call you sexist or any of the ist if they don't have anybody to do that.
I know. So I have seen some stories where they've already started canceling one another over there. There's also been a huge spike in CP following them over
really?
there. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Dark web.
I don't say the word. I don't say the phrase because on Twitter and on YouTube and stuff, if you even utter it,
Really?
They'll zap you.
Yeah.
So try not to say the full or the PEDO
Yeah.
stuff. I try to avoid that on YouTube and Facebook because their AI that listens to this stuff.
They do know that's a legal term, right? Like it is a in fact thing that we, when we prosecute. I think if we talked about sometimes more about the problems of those kind of things, maybe we need to shine a light on the issues of. I've prosecuted a lot of those types of cases, so my thing is maybe we need to talk about it so people understand the problem that it is. But
yeah, I believe the problem with it is the AI recognition, the scanning the stuff in the background. It doesn't recognize context.
That's true. Yeah, AI doesn't know context.
No context. So I think context is going to be something, and I talk about Context Matters on my show a lot. Even thought about renaming my show Context Matters or starting a podcast called Context Matters, and where we tackle tough topics. But I think that you're going to hear the word context and that phrase come up a lot more here in the next few years as AI evolves and people having to put things in legitimate context.
Yeah.
And to understand it and know what it means. But all right, well, look, let's jump in, shall we? What was the guy's name yesterday? Do you have his name by chance?
I don't have it right in front of me.
I know all this other information.
I had my computer up. I got my notes on my computer.
I got all this other information, but I don't have the guy's name. Let me pull up my X account.
I literally said it 15 times in the last hour, and
you know what? It's really a moot point what his name is. The United Healthcare CEO got assassinated right outside of a Hilton hotel in New York City yesterday, right in downtown Manhattan.
Midtown Manhattan.
Midtown.
Yeah.
Midtown Manhattan at a investors conference.
He was going to it. Yep. He was heading towards it.
You know, somebody had to get on stage there and say that it was canceled. They were dealing with a medical emergency with one of their members.
That's technically not false.
No. It's just, but to know that they had to do that, and that's just crazy. So, look, United Healthcare has been I've had them in the past. I'd never had any problems with them, but luckily, knock on wood, I didn't have any problems to really have to use it.
Yeah.
I know my copay sucked.
Right.
Whatever, but it was just a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, no pun intended there.
Yeah, but they cover, I think on my show, that's like 79 million people, right? What's larger than the whole population of Spain is how many people they insure here in the United States. One of the largest. They are I think the 8th largest company in the world.
Really?
It is a
company,
huge,
period?
Yeah, they are a huge. I mean, they're a global company. I mean, obviously, they're biggest here in America. They're based out of Minnesota, but they have global reach. And so it is a gigantic company. I didn't understand. I didn't realize that either until I was, researching it for my thing. Is how big United Healthcare actually is.
So, did you get a chance to cover the cryptic bullets?
Yeah, the words on on 3 of the. I think it was was it the casings or the bullet? I think it was the casings.
The casings.
Yeah.
Just for the sake.
Well, the casings and bullets were found at the scene, so they had some unfired 9mm rounds that were found as well as the casings. And so on 3 casings, there were these cryptic words that were written on them.
I've got I saved this little article late last night. This was so I guess we should tell people what the messages say, right?
Yes.
Let me put my text up.
I'm gonna grab my computer real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Grab that. Guys, we're kind of winging this. We decided here at the last second to add Matthew to the show, so y'all bear with us just a little bit here. The bullets inscribed say, says a revealed meaning of cryptic messages written on bullets assassin used to kill United Healthcare CEO. His name was Brian Thompson, by the way. As his wife revealed, the family had been receiving mystery threats. Now, do you have what I'm trying to find? What they said?
Yeah, I have it in my notes right here. I'm just gonna pull it up. It was 3 bullets, and they
depose,
said
deny, defend.
Yeah, deny, depose, defend. Yep. And that I think that's been confirmed. New York Post, I think, was the first one to report that. And it's essentially been confirmed that those did say that. And again, we talked about this a little bit earlier too, that this obviously looks like a professional hit in the way it was done. The guy was definitely familiar with firearms at the very, very least.
Yes, I would love for you to let's finish this thought. Then I want to circle back to you explaining what he had to do with the suppressor or silencer on there. I thought that was very interesting, the points you made this morning, and I learned something new. So great job there. Well, of course, that don't take much for Clay to learn something new. But I thought it was very, very interesting. So for y'all that don't know, maybe you were living under a rock yesterday. He was outside the Hilton. Somebody walks up behind him and unloads how many rounds?
Three. Yep.
Three.
Shot him 3 times.
Shoots him 3 times and gets away and just disappears into Central Park, and boom, he's gone like a ghost. My theory is that he was a paid hitman, that this was not the person that was denied, or not related to the people that were denied. If that's the theory, I'm going a little deeper down the rabbit hole, and because I'm a conspiracy theorist, or at least that's when my mind goes into full Hollywood movie mode.
Of course.
He was supposed to speak in front of Congress here in the coming weeks over some insider trading stuff that he made millions on, and other investors lost millions.
Yeah.
Is it a scorned investor? Is it somebody who possibly stood a chance of going to jail that was involved further up the ladder or down the ladder? I don't know. Could they have paid a hitman? Because I don't think this was professional hitman type stuff. This was not. I'm not saying John Q. Citizen couldn't also be pissed off and be the assassin. Yeah. But man, I don't know. Just my spidey sense that says this is a paid hit.
Well, it's the reactions, right? And that's how I look at people. Again, I specialize in homicide prosecutions during my time as a prosecutor. And when people are angry, when they go, they get nervous, and especially when things like when weapons jam, they get scared, they get nervous, they run off. This guy was cool, calm, and collected the whole way. His route that he took was very particular, on his escape route. And again, the way that he fired the weapon, the way he cleared the weapon, and he's someone who was very, very common with it, which also makes me think about these cryptic messages, because one person who is good at these sound will also leave false leads, right, to try to throw things off the scent, and things like that, to make it look like you said that it was some kind of scorned person, or maybe it was a scorned person that hired him. I think one fact that is very that goes against that is that this guy knew his schedule, which to me is something that is a regular customer of United Healthcare wouldn't. They don't publish the CEO's schedule to the public.
Especially if the wife on the article I just got sent over by Fred, the wife says there had been some strange threats.
There had been. She said that there were several threats. It was very, very interesting the way she said it. She said there were some threats, and she said maybe it was because of someone's lack of coverage. But then again, I would imagine someone in those positions, these high CEOs, a lot of these, especially insurance companies, get threats all the time. I think that would be that uncommon. It's always easy to say as we look back on it. It's like, oh man, there are threats against him, and he was obviously assassinated. But again, I wouldn't be too surprised if it's not an uncommon theme for people in those kind of positions, especially in healthcare.
24 hours later, it is the number one trend on X. Here's Alex Berenson. I don't know if you follow Alex. He's I subscribed to him on Substack throughout COVID. He was one of the few, I think, former New York Times journalists possibly that would speak the truth about what was going on.
Yeah.
This is from about 5 hours ago. It says the shooter of United Healthcare chief executive, and I'm reading this in live time, so if we're regurgitating here, I apologize. It says it wrote, deny, defend, depose on the shell casings left at the scene, ABC News reports. The words echo the name of a book about how insurers won't pay claims. And you've got a picture of the book here. So that is very interesting. This is about a book written by Jay Feynman. And it says why insurance companies won't pay claims and what you can do about it.
Yeah, like I said, it's, to me, again, especially if a professional hitman, my only thing would be him trying to put out false leads. Because, again, everything else, this whole thing was. So
are you considering this possibly being a false lead?
Potentially, right?
Well, that would play into my thought process, too, that it's not
exactly
a healthcare issue. It's a financial issue.
I think like you said, my inkling is that it has to be someone related to the company. I mean, it could have been a scorned employee or something like that, or a scorned investor. But again, it's knowing his schedule to me is the big thing, of being where he's going to be staying, where the conference was, knowing the conference was going on, investor conference.
On the flip side, if you're an investor and it's an investors conference, wouldn't you have access to that information somewhat? Maybe not his exact schedule, but you're at the conference, you scope it out. Some more video popped up about 13 hours ago of him scoping out the scene 10, 15 minutes prior to it happening.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I guess you get there, you get a vibe for it.
Yeah. like I said, I mean, if you're an investor, you definitely, they let you know when the investor meetings are, where it's going to be. And I'm still getting, I wasn't very clear on some of the reports I was trying to getting, whether he was staying at that Hilton or if the meeting was at the Hilton. I don't know which one it was. It wasn't very clear on the things I was seeing, because I think that's going to make a big difference. Because if the conference is at the hearing, that's much more readily available for people to know than where he was staying. Which again, I think there's a pretty big difference there, in the two.
I think I got your answer.
Okay.
This person, they got a blue check, take it for what it's worth, but it says, I have so many questions about United Healthcare CEO, was assassinated. What information do you have? But here's the interesting part. It says he left the hotel at 7 a.m., heading to the shareholders meeting at 8 a.m. So he was
heading. So it seems that the meeting was at the Hilton then.
I think he had walked out of the Hilton,
He
right?
walked out of the Hilton. Okay,
So
he wasn't
left,
walking.
Yeah, he had was leaving the Hilton, going to the meeting.
Okay, so that means he was staying at the Hilton,
Yep.
which I think that's a important fact. 'Cause again, where the meeting is at least going to be available to a bunch of the shareholders. It's a big company. We talked about that. It's a Fortune 500 company. But where the CEO is actually staying is a completely different, it's something much more closely held.
That's information that they would have had to have. This person finishes us off kind of saying the same thing. This was a hired assassin, not a coincidence. Let's take a break real quick. We ran over there. Y'all don't go anywhere. We're going to unpack this. We got Matt Bishop, host of The Full Story, sitting in studio with me. We're talking about the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO this morning and unpacking some theories. I'm not even calling them conspiracies anymore. Yeah. These are theories, multiple, what do they call it, alternate facts?
Alternate facts, yes.
I like alternate. We're discussing alternate facts this morning. We will be right back on WYAB. Welcome back in to the Clay Edwards Show here live on WYAB 103.9 FM. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Mazda of Jackson. Make it a December to remember this holiday season at Mazda of Jackson. Give or get the gift of the largest SUV that Mazda offers with the all-new CX-90. A third row with seating for up to 8 people. Who would have thunk you could have seating for 8 in a Mazda? That is wild. They have come so far. Multiple convenient power outlets and an available panoramic moonroof. Those are so nice. Buy now and have 90 days to your first payment. Man, get through the holiday season without a car payment sure would be nice.
Yeah, it would be helpful.
But they got 15 models. They have 15 models that start at 0% financing for 36 months, while the Mazda of Jackson robust pre-owned car inventory has rates starting as low as 4.99 with approved credit and down payment. Shop now in person or at MazdaofJackson.com. Again, kind of just some of the incentives they have available. You got 15 models at 0% financing for 36 months.
Can't beat that.
No, you can't. I'm telling you. And they have used vehicles starting as low as 4.99. Guys, prime rate right now is around 8%, no matter how good your credit is. So that is phenomenal. Get over there. Check them out in person. Mazda of Jackson on I-55 there at Briarwood. Or, of course, shop them online, MazdaofJackson.com. And I know I say it a lot, locally owned, locally operated. You guys wouldn't believe how few of these big new car franchise dealerships around here now are not locally owned.
They're taken away. I mean, it's hard to find any now that are locally owned.
I won't say their name because I got a bunch of friends that depend on the income from these places, but one of the big chains is owned by George Soros, right here in central Mississippi. So do your research, and you can figure out who that is, and they'll never get a penny of my money. And I used to work for them before that. Anyway, I digress. We got Matt Bishop in here, the Full Story host, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Friday right here on this very radio station. Matt, give me just a little bit of your background. You were a JAG prosecutor?
Yeah, I was a prosecutor. I was prosecuting the Army for several years, for almost 8 years. And the last couple years, actually, I specialized in homicide prosecutions throughout the DOD. So I would actually travel around the country to do homicide investigations as well as homicide prosecutions. Mostly worked in the investigation side of it near the end as we was getting ready for other agencies and other services who didn't have as many murders that we'd have in the Army to help them out in those and how to run those investigations. So I've dealt quite a bit with a lot of these whodunit cases and how to track these people down.
Well, that's why I enjoyed listening to your show this morning, is you really brought a angle to it of experience when it comes to this kind of stuff. So that's why I was like, please sit over and do a little bit with me. All right, so let's circle back to the actual shooting of the gun itself.
Yeah.
We're talking about the United Healthcare CEO who got assassinated in Manhattan yesterday morning. If you're just getting in your vehicle and wondering what we're talking about, a little reset there for you. You brought up a great point. So this guy's using a silencer or suppressor, whatever you want to call it. I learned today that the legal term is silencer.
Silencer under the tax stamp says silencer.
Well, that's what we'll call it then, a silencer, just like the difference in a clip in a magazine.
That's right.
So I watched the video, and then a lot of people were trying to suggest that it was a handmade, like a 3D printed gun. I've seen all kind of scenarios out there, but that's really kind of irrelevant. But it was the having to
just rack the slide back each time.
Thank you. It had to re-rack the slide back between every time. Explain to people what caused the misfire. I thought this was wildly interesting.
Yeah, so again, I know this from my experience of mostly prosecuting these illegal silencers quite often, and also homicides involving them.
And also be sure to hit why this tends to lead to thinking that this is a professional.
Of course, yeah. So anytime you have these silencers, they're only really effective with subsonic ammunition, first off. So, which means if it's above the sound barrier, what you're still going to have is you're still going to have that sonic boom. So it's going to take away a lot of the effects. It's not like video games where you hear the pew pew kind of noise.
Or like Hollywood movie. Psh, psh,
yeah,
psh.
Exactly. It doesn't quite sound like that if you're using regular 9mm ammunition. We do know this is a 9mm now. So first thing you have to use is subsonic ammunition, which essentially means a bullet has to be slower, which means you're using less propellant. And how these guns usually operate are, blowback operated, which means they utilize the pressure from the casing to rack that slide back and for the gun to cycle. So first off, you're having that much slower bullet. And looking at the video here, you're not seeing people running. Actually, someone walks by him at a certain point.
Yeah, there's somebody off to the right, like under an awning maybe.
Exactly.
And I think they kind of realize what's going on at some point. They get up and wander.
Yeah.
And the guy never looked over at them like he was going to shoot them.
No.
He had his target in mind, and that was it.
Exactly. And like I said, there was no panic, which tells me this thing was decently quiet, which makes me think he was using this subsonic ammunition. But also what that does, that makes it tougher for that pistol to essentially cycle. You put on the silencer at the end, which also can affect that it has more internal pressure, which again is going to hurt that blowback operation. So it's very common for these pistols with a silencer to fail to cycle. And if you know that and you practice that, then all you really have to do is you just have to cycle it yourself. So you're firing, cycle, fire, cycle, fire, cycle, which is exactly what he did. He didn't hesitate a single second. So he'd obviously had practiced this at least, or maybe have done it before, right? Which what that shows me. And only a professional would know that. A normal person is like, oh, I'm going to throw that silencer on there. They're going to try to fire it. It's going to jam. It doesn't really jam. It just doesn't cycle. You fire once, it doesn't cycle. They're going to freak out, right? Because it's like, oh, the gun's not working. This guy knew ahead of time the gun wasn't going to cycle. He knew based on the ammunition he was using, based on the silencer at the end, that this particular pistol wasn't going to cycle by itself. And it's like it was one fluid motion as you watch him do it.
So, what it got me to thinking was depending on where he's from, we don't have any idea, but presuming he's from an urban area, he's probably been out to a gun range doing this. And I just got to thinking, is there somebody who in the back of their mind saw this guy doing this and maybe at a gun range or at a indoor shooting range, something like that, and recognizes the motion, and it pings something in their head like, hey,
yeah,
this may be that guy, as far as like people just calling in tips and stuff,
right.
If you're at like a two-gun tactical here, for a local example,
right.
and you see the guy next to you, that's not a normal thing you see at
right.
a gun range. So if you saw somebody practicing that, 'cause he's clearly practiced this.
Yes, absolutely.
He's
very smooth. He's very fluid with it.
Like that would be something I would be, if I'm the FBI, if I'm an investigator in this, that would be one of the things I would be asking. Hey, guys, if this looks familiar, if you've seen this at your gun range, or if you saw your buddy shooting his gun somewhere. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, then again, maybe he's got some land somewhere, does it all in private. Nobody knows.
Yeah. But, the thing is, what people don't realize about these silencers is not, people think, oh, silencers are illegal. They're not technically illegal. You just have to have a proper tax stamp for them. It's actually a tax stamp that you have to get, which people don't realize. It's a violation of the tax code.
I think Guns and Gear can do them here. I feel like they
yeah, a lot of people can if they have it's an extra FFL license they have to have. It's not your standard one, but it's like I can't remember. It's $300 or $400 tax stamp that you have to get, which is usually more expensive than the silencer itself. But yeah, this guy obviously has practiced with it before, and that's just one of the other things. Again, his movements, utilizing, where he was in the city and everything else, also kind of bodes to that.
Got a couple questions here. Somebody asked, did the shooter leave his brass laying on the ground?
Yeah, that's where we got those three things. We found the three. We also there's some unfired 9mm rounds on the pavement as well. That could have been when he was cycling it. He had some unfired rounds that came out when he did it. You can't really. It's not that high definition of a security camera to tell.
Somebody texting on the Guns and Gear text line says shareholders receive a notice of all meetings. If I was a stockholder, I would receive it.
Yeah, that's why I said it's a difference between when this happened right outside the meeting or outside his hotel. And he's right. Stockholders would have where the meeting is being held. They probably wouldn't have where the CEO is staying in his hotel, unless a lot of other. Again, it could have been a lot of other company people staying at that hotel as well, though.
Steven says any decent gun owner should know how to clear a jam. That doesn't mean he's a professional. A pro's gun wouldn't jam after 2 shots.
Well, again, to me, it's he knew it was going to jam because of the silencer and how he was using them. That to me is the difference. And again, it's not.
The silencer is causing the jam.
The silencer and potentially the ammunition as well. Yeah. If he's using that, like I said, subsonic ammunition. But you also put the fact, it's how clearly he did it and how smooth he was with. Again, a normal person who's not, even if you go to the gun range and you practice it, when you try to go kill someone, your nerves are up, your adrenaline is up, and if that pistol jams, you're not ready for it. People freak out. They stumble. Almost every normal person, except someone who has practiced at it, right? Who has done this a million times and it's second nature. And especially someone in this case, he knew it was going to happen from the get go, which I 100% believe.
And he went into a Starbucks right before?
He was in a Starbucks right before.
With a mask on, of course.
With the mask on.
Another example of liberal policies getting people killed.
I know, it was worked out. COVID has been great for criminals. I don't know if they realize that, but like in my own practice and as a prosecutor, like no one questions anymore. Like beforehand, if you walked in with a mask, like, hey, what is this guy doing? Is he's up to something? Especially in New York City, like, you can just walk around with a mask anywhere you want. It's perfect if you want to go commit a crime later on. Especially, I said that's the crazy thing with Manhattan is that there's cameras everywhere, right? Yep. And then he makes sure that he goes into Central Park. I don't know if we need to take another break.
Yeah, look, when we got to take our break. When we come back, we're going to get into the cell phone GPS tracking. Or what do they call it? What's the technical term?
It's cell tower is how we're doing it.
The geofencing type stuff.
Yeah, geofencing.
And get into that because they were able to find all the January 6th folks that were in D.C. or anywhere near the Capitol on January 6th 4 years ago. Surely they can track this guy down. It'll be a little bit of effort, but we'll see. We're going to discuss that and more on the other side of the break here with Matt Bishop. This is the Clay Edwards Show. We're all in on the United Healthcare CEO assassination this morning. I see all of your chats as well. We're going to get into all that. The Guns and Gear text line is 769-241-1944. If you want to call in this morning with your theory, we'd love to hear it. The Mazda Jackson phone line, 601-879-0002. We'll be right back. Let's read some of their theories because I don't know if we'll have time to get it on air.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna hang out with y'all here in the live stream. Nathan, let me kind of start back. Man, they got some long ones here.
They got some theories.
Let's see here. Josh Manning on YouTube. Good morning, Josh. Says, is there threatening somebody is threatening them when they didn't just turn the threats in? I think he's saying if somebody was trying to threaten them, they probably did.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm going to guess they did. But
again, I imagine guys like
this. I get
this.
threats all the time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I imagine guys like this, especially in that position of healthcare, it's not an uncommon thing they get a lot of threats.
Sure.
Josh
says, hey, Clay, I know this may sound stupid, but all these damn games teaching little kids with the silencers, I know they're not real. I'm just saying. Well, you have all these just games in general. These
Yeah.
these live action, not live action, but these role playing
Yeah.
first player shooting
Yeah,
games.
FPS games, movies. Like I said, but people don't realize guns are not really made for silencers, right? So they don't operate like they do in the movies. Which again makes me wonder, goes to the fact that this guy, he knew what was going to happen beforehand. This guy's not relying on movies and like, oh man, it's going to be silent, it's going to work just perfectly. No, it almost never does.
This is funny. I'm going to circle. I'm going to jump to the end here. So this one here, I want to read this. SWRSK says, where'd it go? Anyway, no, Matt Gibson said, do you guys think it was a Ukrainian nationalist upset about Ukraine funding in the Russia war? Well, of course.
Yeah.
But all roads lead back.
All these roads lead to Ukraine and the Bidens.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie Gaines, good morning, Katie, on Facebook says, I could be wrong, but didn't he get away on a bicycle? I just can't believe no one could catch him or follow him as he pedaled away and used a Lyft bicycle, which what I read, Lyft contract ended up not being.
Yeah, it wasn't that. And like you said, I think this also goes to the fact
it was on a bike, but it ended up not being.
It wasn't a city bike. But I think this also goes to the fact, that again, this thing was pretty quiet. He was using subsonic ammunition because it didn't cause a panic, right? And it was also kind of early in the morning, but still, like he was able to do that, get on his bike. No one followed him. No one was really noticed. I think outside that one guy on the sidewalk who saw it happen. No one really noticed it happen. So he was able to get on there and just ride over to Central Park.
Yep. Katie, we're probably going to mention that again when we come back because I think that's a big, big part of the story. And we'll get to the rest of your theory when we come back. Let's see. I think we may have time for one more. Christina K. Cox, that is a lot there. I will read it when I get maybe the second hour. Talking about Trump possibly being assassinated at some point. Somebody was telling me, or not telling me, but I was listening to one of the podcasters yesterday, and they actually had a meeting or ate at that hotel with Trump not too long ago in the last few years.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Let's see here. This other person, SWRSK, says, not sure if a pro, he grabbed the slide from the back instead of putting his hand over the slide and racking it. So I'm not sure. That's kind of semantics.
Yeah, again, to me, it was a smooth motion of it. I mean, boom, boom. It was... to me, that's what matters more.
We're getting ready to come back from the break here now. Give me just a few seconds of silence.
You get a little bit of it.
Welcome back in to the Clay Edwards Show here live on WYAB. This segment brought to you by our friends over at El Patrio Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, with 2 locations to serve you. One right there at Dogwood, right there at the entrance of Dogwood and Flowwood. You know where it is. It's been there for a good while now. Also, their other location on Highway 80 in Brandon, Mississippi, right there in front of the Crossgates neighborhood, right across the street from, let's see here, is that the Brandon Library, the public library? You know where it is. If you're in Crossgates, you know where it is. You see me there on a regular basis. They got a nice little regular happy hour crew in there, a bunch of good folks. Shout out to all those guys. My buddy with Crossgates Towing and that crew. But look, you're looking for a perfect spot done well with friends? El Patrio Mexican Restaurant is calling your name with locations in Flowwood and Brandon. El Patrio is the cozy, family-owned gym where great food meets great times. Enjoy El Patrio's signature margaritas and happy hour specials that keep the customers coming back for more. Also, indulge in their authentic Mexican dishes, prepared with love and served in a warm, family-friendly atmosphere. Come to El Patrio, taste the tradition. El Patrio, where family, flavor, and fun come together. Just great folks, man. It's always cool when your favorite place becomes one of your sponsors. Yeah, I was going to
say, Clay, you talk about El Patrio and even you don't have to. Like, I'm just in passing, you talk to me about El Patrio.
Yes. I mean, I got two little spots in Brandon, El Patrio and Burgers Blues Barbecue. And if you can't find me at one, I'm probably at the other. I'm not hard to find, unfortunately. So, great places. And I was a loyal customer of both before they ever became a partner here on the show. Yeah. So I think they finally were like, all right, we'll give you some of your money back. But anyway, I don't feel bad at all telling y'all these are my favorite places. All right, look, that's El Patrio. Like I said, 2 great locations to serve. You get over there, grab a lunch today. Man, you can get in and out of there I think lunch fajitas are $7.99.
Can't beat it.
If you're not drinking a soft drink, you can get out of there for under $10.
Yeah.
Before you tip.
Cheaper. Not only is it cheaper than McDonald's, it's sometimes quicker, and you get service.
And it's healthier.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing keto, tell them to get the fajitas, forget the shells.
Yeah.
Sour cream is carb free. Cheese is carb free. Vegetables, meat, all that's carb free. You can go get a keto fajita lunch.
Yeah.
Just don't eat the shells or the chips.
Yeah.
And boom.
Good to go.
Good to go. All right. Matt, let's talk about, we got about 5, 6, 7 minutes here, 6 minutes before we got to go on our last break. Anyway, the cell phone data.
Yes.
And how can they catch this guy? What type of technology and tracking is going to go into trying to retrace the footsteps into Central Park, out of Central Park? I think is the big question here. Yeah. What direction? All of that. Put your investigator hat on,
yeah.
Prosecutor hat.
So we kind of talked a little about this. So the first thing that popped in my mind was we see him before the shooting, as we talked about, kind of casing it, and he was on his cell phone. So that immediately makes us think of geofencing, which you mentioned earlier. And geofencing, for those who don't know, is essentially we take several different cell towers and we try to narrow it down to a small area, and we can figure out based on their cell phones who was in there. Right? We can see the data from those cell phones, go to the carriers, subpoena the carriers to see who those cell phones belong to. That's how those January 6th things were mostly prosecuted. The big problem is the differences between January 6th prosecution. I'm by the way, I think that was a political persecution, but I'm just from an investigatory standpoint is what I'm talking about now. They're
very close to being pardoned.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. Trump's already talked about it, but when you look at the Capitol, it's pretty isolated if you've ever been there, right? Like, sure, it's in DC, which is not a small city, but it's isolated in itself. It's not really that close to a lot of places, so you can narrow it down to a good area. We can figure out who exactly was in there and narrow it down. We're talking about Midtown Manhattan, right? If you're talking just one block, and it's bigger than you can't narrow it down to one block. You can narrow it down to pretty small. I don't want to tell people exactly how small, but you can narrow it down decently small, but not down to a block. And so even if you could do it down to a block, you're talking multiple thousands of people, and you're at a hotel, right? With the people using their cell phones there. And so just in the time it takes to parse through all of that. First, you got to subpoena all the carriers and trying to parse through all that. So it's a lead that can be followed up, but it's not going to help us locate him.
Well, imagine, put it on a local level here. Imagine a high school football stadium, 50,000 people. If you count, if you want to cram 50,000 people on the property, on the field, in the stands, or better yet, the JSU football stadium, college football stadium. Let's do a more realistic comparison here. And something like that happens in that space. That many people. That's how tight and how packed it can be in this space we're talking about in New York here, and then trying to find that phone.
Exactly.
Like, okay, sure, we could track it down here. We know where it happened at.
Right.
But you got 50,000 people going 50,000 different directions.
Right. And you're looking for one. That's the other difference between J6, right? And J6, we're looking for hundreds, of people at that time, right? Which is, you can do it a lot quicker. But then it wasn't trying to track people down. It was just trying to identify them. Here, we're trying to find them, and it takes time to get through that, to parse through all that data. Again, it's just finding that needle in the haystack, which is not going to help you find them. And, which goes to, we obviously have, they say there's a cell phone that belonged to him. One thing that we can better get, and what we do is we get that cell phone. If it wasn't a burner phone or something like that, if we can figure out who it belonged to, we can see if he has other phones, right? That's going to be the easy one to do if you can break into it. But people don't realize that these phones for digital forensic examiners are extremely difficult to get into. It's not like you see the shows. Oh, the guy just plugs it up. Oh, let me crack it real easy, right? It doesn't work that way.
Like Apple's not giving access to the Trump shooter.
No. They don't. And like I said, as someone who's been on that law enforcement side of trying to get in, they will not work with you whatsoever in any kind of capacity. Good, bad, or indifferent. There's pros and cons to that, I guess.
I get it. I'm with you on it. There's ups and downs.
Right. So I'm not going to I don't want to fault them necessarily for it, because I can see that being abused. But it's hard. Like they keep getting better. Every time we get new extraction keys, they create new security features. And typically, like, people don't realize, we plug it up to a machine that just tries the different codes. If we keep it from locking out, sometimes it can take years to try to get into a phone if we don't have it.
Somebody said the tracking that we're looking for is called triangulation.
Yeah, well, triangulate's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Geofencing, it uses it through those different ones. The technology is called geofencing. But again, it's not going to be effective in locating this guy. And this guy was very smart. Again, he had obviously planned this route because there's cameras everywhere, right, in Midtown Manhattan. Every single building he potentially has. And there are some cameras in Central Park, but they're much sparsely located. So by him going in there, he essentially can lose himself, come out a different way. Now, if he goes back to a subway or something, they can find him and try to do facial detection. But he gets into a taxi. But again, all this goes to he's still not identified. He could have got to JFK yesterday afternoon. He's in Tahiti right now, right? And I'm sure if he is a professional, he is long gone from the area at this point. So, I think it's going to take a while to identify him because he like I said, what he did was very planned out, and actually being in Midtown Manhattan helped him in a way. Being in this sparsely, this very densely populated area.
There was one thing though that surprised me, where he looked like he got a little confused. When he got on his bicycle, he looked like he was going to, just for the sake of this conversation, I don't know what direction, but just to say he was going north, and he got up and turned around and went back the other way. Yeah. Which kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, did he get confused?
Well, I think, even professionally, you still have adrenaline running, right? Obviously he was smooth in the shooting, but it's very easy to get out, take out the wrong right, and then turn around. Because it also tells me he had a pre-planned route, right? He knew he was going. He had obviously practiced this. Or at least practice the route on a map, if nothing else, if he didn't practice it physically beforehand. So I still think he had a little bit of adrenaline going for him.
Yeah, I feel like Steven feels like he's trying to make the argument for it not being a pro.
Yeah.
He's suggested several different reasons why he thinks it may not have been a pro, such as I think a pro would have used something other than a 9. I bet it was a mad dad, son, brother who lost someone with a cheaper gun and suppressor. I understand. I think that's what they want you to think. I think,
like I said, that's
the
why
misdirection.
That's why I think about the casings is to me is a misdirection as well.
Yeah.
Because again, a mad father doesn't act in the way that they freak out when you shoot, because no one's really shot a person before. Like until you've done that, or if you haven't, unless you've done it before, you freak out when you do it. I don't care how motivated you are.
And maybe this is because, with what you've done for a living and the fact that I have to get up here and unpack theories all the time and ideas and make for what I hope is entertaining talk radio.
Yeah.
Maybe I live in a bubble where sometimes Occam's razor isn't the scenario I want it to be.
Right. Yeah.
Like I think this is more juicy.
Right.
If it's not Occam's razor, if it's not the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's an upset parent or loved one.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most likely answer, but I feel like that's what they want you to think.
Yeah, well, I said, if nothing else, if it is, he's a very well-practiced
Absolutely.
person.
We got to take our little break. We'll be right back. Hang on, guys. All right, Matt, you got a minute?
Yeah.
You in a rush?
No.
Hey, look, we're in our top of the hour 7-minute news break. I don't want to leave you guys hanging for that long. We were just talking during the break. It's I don't want to circle back all the way to what we were talking about, but I do want to just people's reaction to this. Mm-hmm. America's reaction. Like Sean texted me last night. He goes, "Man, this is as unified as I've seen the country since 9/11."
Yeah.
And the people's reaction to this death is I haven't seen so little sympathy about it. I've seen a lot of memes. I have seen some people say this is distasteful, whatever. But I feel like we've reached this point in America where people expect us to be sympathetic and empathetic about everything.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, and on my show I talked about some of the stuff that United Healthcare has done. They are not they have not treated people correctly.
Did you talk about their AI software?
No, I didn't talk about the AI software.
They're being sued over their AI having an error in the programming where it was turning down 90% of the claims.
Yeah. I've heard, overall they've turned down, I think it's
that's
on
not
average.
Error. That's the way it was designed.
Yeah. They said they have some of the highest turn down rates, and this guy in particular, like I looked at his record in particular. He was 4 programs. I think one of them was where if you go to the emergency room, they decide, well, you didn't need to go, so we're not going to pay it. then the president, the chief executive of the American Hospital Association wrote, patients are not medical experts and should not be expected to self-diagnose on what they believe is a medical emergency. This is going to have a chilling effect on people going to get health care. It's stuff like that, I obviously, who I feel bad in the situation. I feel bad for his kids, and don't get me wrong, right? They, and all that stuff, because it's not, right for them to do it. But at the end of the day, it's not like this guy was Mother Teresa,
Yeah. Stephen, you may have been late to what we were saying earlier. You mentioned here in your text says police said the words delay and depose were written on the shell casings found at the scene. Actually, what we had discovered since the show started, it says delay, deny, defend on the shell casings, and that is the name of a book about why insurance companies don't pay claims and what you can do about it. So this person obviously had read this book or knew of its existence, and it just adds another layer.
Yeah, again, which partially makes me think it's a false lead, but I'm trying to throw the scent off.
I agree. It's almost
it's too on the nose, right? Like, especially with nothing else on there. Again, that's to try to make people believe it's something else.
It's like I love wrestling storytelling.
Yeah,
and it's just always whatever you think is the most logical solution. There's usually either a family member or a scorned investor.
Yeah,
I think that's your two.
Yeah,
your two things there. I don't think that this was the scorned father or son.
I don't think so either.
I think that's the most salacious.
Yeah,
that's the happy ending I think everybody wants. That's that.
Yeah,
let's just say it. The CEO, the healthcare CEO, is a bad guy.
Yeah,
this is the basis of the business.
Yeah,
is for them to not pay your claims.
Yeah, they make more money the less claims they pay out at the end of the day.
Can you stick around for a segment? And do some question and answer stuff.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, guys, we're getting ready to come back from the break. We're going to have a moment of silence leading up to it. Boom, shakalaka boom. It's hour 2 of the most incendiary show on the internet and the airwaves.
Hour 3 for some of us.
Hour 3 for Matthew Bishop here. Matthew is going to stay and finish out the show with us today. So, we may hit another topic or two. I'd like to get Matthew's thoughts on these pardons and rumored pardons of people like Anthony the Rat Fauci that I saw last night, and the ramifications of something like that. It wouldn't hurt my feelings none if Anthony Fauci decided to go stay at a Hilton in New York, in Manhattan. Wouldn't hurt my feelings none.
I think it wouldn't hurt a lot of people's feelings.
The Lord's pardon.
The Lord's pardon.
The Lord's pardon. That. But look, this segment is going to be brought to you by our friends over at Stonington Farm Grass-Fed Beef. The guys are going to be up here next Friday, the 13th. Be thinking about it now. Get that grass-fed beef, and the healthier you live, the less you'll have to deal with insurance companies.
That's right.
Like United Healthcare. Anyhow, 100% grass-fed, 100% grass-finished, locally sourced right down there in Perkinston, Mississippi, grass-fed, mRNA-free, antibiotic-free, and unlike me, steroid-free grass-fed beef. Ain't nothing wrong with those steroids here and there, as long as it's legally done through your doctor.
Legal.
Men's Health Mississippi. So look, check them out, StoningtonFarm.com. That's Stonington with 2 N's. You'll select your picks online. You'll go to view our cuts is the link you want to click. It has all the different cuts available, the pricing. You're going to call, old-fashioned. You're going to call. You're going to talk to the owner, Miss Katie Stonington. You're going to give her your order. You're going to be able to ask any questions you may have about the different cuts, the packages.
They have different types of beef. They have like Angus, like Wagyu, like different types, or they specialize in like a certain type of cow.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. I've never seen the Wagyu option on there.
Okay. I was just wondering.
So I'm not sure about how it's rated.
Yeah.
And whatnot, but their stuff is phenomenal. I mean, I've been a customer for over 2 years.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I was a customer before another one. It's another one. I was a customer before they were my customer. Yeah. So, excuse me. Really, really good stuff. So you'll go there. She'll answer any of your questions. They bring it up here, and they meet in one of 3 local delivery areas in Florence, Brandon, and Ridgeland. Pick which one works best for you. Mm-hmm. They'll be up here Friday the 13th. You got to get your order in by that Thursday. And they do have some mini cow, half cow specials going on right now. They got some roast specials. So check them out. That's StoningtonFarm.com. It's Stonington with 2 N's.
It's really amazing to me. You see that kind of beef, and you're used to buying. If you're used to buying steaks and stuff at the grocery store, the color difference.
Oh yeah,
right, and how much deeper the reds are, and like you get the thing from the thing. It's like pale.
The marbleization and fat.
Yeah,
and stuff.
exactly. It's like, man, you don't realize it until you actually see what grass fed means. You can see it personally. I love to cook, so you see that. It's like, man, there is a legit difference when you just from visually you can see it.
Yeah, they changed the law, and somebody else could probably tell me better than I can regurgitate this, but for a while you could not buy directly from the farmer.
Oh, really?
It had to, the farmer had to get their product into a store,
yeah,
and you buy from them. Like it had to go through a middleman,
the grocery lobby.
Yep, yeah. And now you can get it directly from your farmer.
That's good,
and it's opened up a whole new industry, for people, and we're getting some really quality beef, and we've got some guys here locally right here in Florida, Mississippi. I think it's Bozeman Farms.
Yeah, Bozeman.
Just some great folks that do really, really good stuff. So just support your local beef rancher.
Absolutely.
Right here in Mississippi. It ain't got to be Yellowstone. It ain't got to be the 4 6s. We got it right here in central Mississippi. And of course, one of our great sponsors, Stonington Farm down there in South Mississippi. But I always encourage you to use our sponsors, but use local. Whatever it is, that's always going to be my hill to die on. Yeah,
it's also just like you said, you live in this area. It's just healthy for us. It doesn't have to travel in freezers and everything else, right?
Yep.
It's just better food at the end of the day.
Yep. All right, guys. So we're going to just hit the comments here. I think we're kind of caught up, right?
Yeah, I think so.
This is an international man of mystery at this moment.
Yes.
So we're going to hit your comments, and I want to circle back to Katie. Had a pretty long, good comment or question. I want to make sure we hit that whole thing here. You guys take the time to write these out. I want to make sure we take the time to read them. And I'm going to get your text messages on the Guns and Gear text line. If y'all want to call the Mazda Jackson phone line, 601-879-0002. I thought the phone line would be lit up this morning on some true crime stuff, but it is what it is. All right, so Katie brought up, she goes, I could be wrong, but didn't he get away on a bicycle? I just can't believe no one could catch him or follow him as he pedaled away. Well, that goes back to the silencer,
right?
I believe. She also says, I think he used a lift bicycle, which I read lift can track the bike. He ended up not being one of those rental bikes, Katie. And also she says, I would be a little concerned about leaving the city on a bicycle, but it worked for him. I guess I just think it's odd at first. First of all, didn't he get away on a bike? Well, he got into Central Park on a bike. What happened after he got into Central Park? We don't know.
And I don't, like I said, if I don't know how many people been to it's been to Midtown, but like a bicycle is the quickest way and actually to get away, because you can the traffic and everything else. It's just that's the by far the easiest way to get away as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, she just kind of goes on about the bike and just she didn't make a funny point, and it said, and Katie's from the country, so to say, but Katie mentioned that. If she hired a hitman and they told her the plan and they mentioned that he was going to get away on a bike, she would have her second thoughts. But this is New York.
Right.
And that's probably the best way to get away.
It is the absolute best
on
way.
A bike because of traffic and stuff. And
that is kind of funny. Yeah, here's my Schwinn. This is my getaway vehicle. Yeah.
I know. And she's not, and I want to make sure Katie knows I'm not picking on her, but that's the different mentality from being out in the, and when I say the country, I just mean Mississippi, period.
Mississippi, yeah.
There's no comparison here to explain New York traffic versus Mississippi and everything. On a bicycle, you can just run right in between the vehicles.
Yeah.
Here, if you told me you were trying to get away on a bicycle, I would ask you if you rode the short bus.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. There's
no
way
you're not getting in a car.
Yeah. There's no way you can get away. You can't get away on a bicycle in Mississippi.
So we got a few texts over here, and if we're being redundant, I apologize this morning, but I want to make sure I get you guys all read up. Jason Odom on the Guns and Gear text line says, "What's really going on? If the biggest story is the insurance guy, what are we being distracted from?" Normally, I buy into that kind of stuff. Like this is distracting us from something. I don't think that this is a big juicy story.
Yeah,
I mean, I think two things can be right. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. And I think that's part of it.
World
But
War III.
I think because of all this other stuff, you know, the Ukraine, the pardons, all this stuff, I think people are looking for something that's not that, right? And this is the not that story, right?
Yep.
It's like, as you said, as Sean mentioned, it brings us together because it's interesting to people. It's movie like, you know, so it's fun for people to look at and try to figure out their own theories. And it gives them a break from the same stuff, you know, because it's always something new, you know, with the politics season this year. And it's always something crazy. But this is not that. So I think people can, at least it gives them a few days of break from it.
It does. And we live in this peak true crime fascination era
Absolutely.
right now. Mm-hmm. It's an entire industry.
Yeah.
Now. I mean, I know girls that their full-time job is doing true crime TikToks.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised. I guess I was a homicide prosecutor for a long time, and then people, I noticed as time went on, I'd have more and more people show up to like preliminary hearings and all these other stuff just so they could hear what was going on with the case, and then have them talk about your case in their own online forums and the podcast and everything else. Like, man, this is a whole industry of true crime that I didn't even realize. And I was obviously in the business of homicides and homicide prosecution, not in the business of homicides. So this guy
I know
is.
what you mean.
Yeah, that's what this guy was in the business of. It was mind blowing, and it's interesting to people, and you can't. Movies are great, but you can't beat real life sometimes.
What is that noise?
That is a lawnmower.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I heard something going on. I was like, what in the world? Let's see here. Going through your text messages here. I've never heard of that being that loud. Yeah. Somebody did clear up about the suppressors or silencers. Says, did the shooter leave his brass laying on the ground? I said the tax stamp is $200 for the silencer.
Yeah.
Already read Steven's text there. I read that about the shareholders. All right, here's a good one, I think. It says, I think this is way bigger than a disgruntled employee or family member of someone who got denied. I think he was either guilty of something illegal or either was about to whistleblow on someone bigger, just my opinion. Thanks. That's where my mind.
Yeah, that's where exactly where you were talking about earlier, Clay.
Yeah, that's where because he was supposed to speak in front of Congress here in the coming weeks.
Yeah. There
was a bunch of insider trading stuff that had been going on allegedly. Mm-hmm. I don't think it was alleged. I think he was being investigated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's where my mind is at, and I think that all of this stuff is to knock you off the scent. Yeah,
I mean, again, at the end of the day, these companies care about their image and their money, and especially the shareholders care about their money first. And it's also not something not to mention, but I don't know if people realize this, but a lot of CEOs and these high people in these companies, the companies actually take out insurance policies on them as well. That's known as key man insurance.
Yeah.
And these can be $10, $15 million policies. Say, oh man, this guy, if he was to leave our company, it'd cost us so much money. And if this guy is already, again, we're really getting down to, down the rabbit hole here. And, obviously we don't know any of this at this point. It's fun to talk about though. But, it's just so much that the company has riding on this guy if things were to go south. And if he costs him, if he's going to cost you millions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars, what's a million or so to a hitman?
I am more surprised that he did not have his own security.
Yeah, especially with the threats. He gets paid a lot. This is, like I said, it's a huge company. It's one of the top 10, biggest companies in the world.
Yeah, I think he made $10 million last year.
$10 million a year. If nothing else, if I'm getting threats against me, maybe he gets threats all the time, so he doesn't really put a lot of credence into them, which I can kind of get. But it's also always easy to Monday morning quarterback that. But, especially in a place like Midtown Manhattan, just have someone. But, I don't know how often, CEOs have protection. I just know from my time as the media in the automotive industry is covering, I interviewed a lot of CEOs. I don't think I ever saw one automotive CEO that ever had a bodyguard.
No, I mean, I don't think he will in that.
Yeah.
That when you say automotive CEOs, you mean like Ford, GM,
Ford, yeah, like I said,
the big time CEOs, or
right.
are you talking about like accessory CEOs?
No, like the guys, like the big ones.
Yeah.
They'd always have a posse though. That was they'd always have these people just following them everywhere they went. Mm-hmm. They were I never saw one alone, at least from the media standpoint. But like I said, this guy. They said he was obviously leaving his hotel room. Maybe he was going to meet up with people later, but The fact he was leaving alone is very interesting. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't expect. Was he staying there by himself? You figure if it was a conference, he had other people staying at the Hilton. I don't know. Which again makes me question how this guy knew he was staying at the Hilton. How he was staying. That to me, that's a big question of who it could possibly be.
That's a really, really. I know you mentioned that earlier, but
Yeah.
as we peel this onion back a little bit, I think that's going to become a much bigger part of this scenario.
Right.
Who knew he was there? I would like to know the call logs.
Yeah.
Did somebody call around the hotels and ask for his name?
Yeah. I mean, in hotels, typically aren't going to just give that out unless, again, you ask for him to be there. I guess you theoretically could be like, hey, can I get whatever this guy, I've already forgot his name again. But
I was going to say it's the misdirection. You would
Yeah.
just call and assume he's staying there.
Exactly.
What room is such and such? Connect me to.
yeah,
the
just
visitor's
I'm
room.
looking for Mr. whatever this guy. I can't remember. I've already forgotten his name.
Brian
but
Thompson or
Thompson.
something?
I'm looking for Mr. Can you connect me to Mr. Thompson's room? Oh, he's not staying here. Okay, thank you.
Brian
But
Thompson.
again, as many hotels as there are in Midtown Manhattan, there's a bunch, especially in that area. So we're talking just a few streets away from Times Square. We're not. You're just a few blocks away from. This is prime hotel territory in Manhattan. So it would take a while. Like I said, this guy obviously had some kind of information that I think is how if I'm the investigators, that's where I start is who knew he was staying there, because I'm sure that's not a huge list, and then kind of parse it back from there and try to find out alibis for all the people who knew he was there. At least that's the easiest lead to start with.
Have you been keeping up with the Daniel Penny stuff
No.
in New York?
Daniel Penny.
He's the guy. He is the veteran who.
Oh yes,
choked
yes, the guy the chokehold
subway.
on the subway. Yeah, sorry. Mhm.
Yep. Have you been keeping up with that at all?
His trial that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Why don't we do this? I'd like to hit on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's take a break real quick. Let's get our notes together on the Daniel Penny stuff, because I'd like to just get your thoughts on that,
Yeah.
as well as some of my thoughts on it. And we got to be able to get back to a point where we can kill bad guys without going to prison for it. We'll be right back on the Clay Edwards Show on WYAB. Guest host this morning, Matthew Bishop. Welcome back in to the Clay Edwards Show. This segment brought to you by our friends over at Ellis Autoplex, right there on Highway 471 in Flowood, Mississippi, right there off 25. As soon as you get off 25, if you're heading east on 25, get off on 471, take a right. It's the second car lot on your right. It's got a sign. It says Ellis Autoplex. It's easy to find. It's also known as Little Truck City. Clay, why do you call it Little Truck City? You may ask. Well, I'm glad you asked. It's because they specialize in a lot of trucks. If you need a truck, particularly a four-door, four-wheel drive, Little Truck City, a.k.a. Ellis Autoplex, is going to be your one-stop shop. But, hey, they got more than trucks. They also have some cars and SUVs as well. They're even doing some major automotive repair there now, which just makes sense for a good used car company that's used to having to
They can do it on their own cars anyway when they get them at auction, so might as well do it for others.
Recon is the biggest part of, other than buying vehicles, recon is the biggest part of running a dealership.
Yeah.
And you got to get good at it. You got to get efficient at it. And somewhere like Ellis, it specializes in basically 3 or 4 different kind of trucks.
Yeah.
Consistently over and over and over. They have other stuff as well, but they specialize in Ford F-150s, 5.0s, and EcoBoost.
Yeah. Once you work on them so many times, you know them just as better as any Ford mechanic.
Right, you do. You know the problems. You know what you got to work on. Well, that's kind of the same people. I want to work on my truck if I have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Without having to go pay that big new car franchise dealer mechanic fee.
Yeah.
I take it over there and let them do it.
Yeah.
And they know the issues. So if you got having any problems with your vehicles, they're not doing oil changes and little stuff like that. But you got any major repairs you need, consider Ellis Autoplex to work on it. And look, of course, don't forget from back when I was working there, Casey will scratch you a check today on the spot, a good local check from a bank that will cash today to buy your vehicle.
Yeah.
He's going to pay you fair market value for it, but he can give you an estimate online or by the phone, but none of that's really going to matter till he sees it, puts his hands on it, drives it, make sure there's not any hidden problems. Not saying you're trying to hide anything, but problems you may not know exist.
Even know,
just let them touch it and see it. But we bought a bunch of vehicles from our listeners when I was there, and always did everybody right. So I encourage you to still get by there and break bread with those folks. There's some good people, and they're going to take care of you on the buying you one or selling you one. But anyway, stuff happens, but I swing by there, see them. That's Ellis Autoplex. Shop them online, ellisautoplex.com. All right, Daniel Penny. This is an interesting case.
Yeah.
Let me put my headphones on. Mm-hmm. After wearing headphones all the time, if you do a segment without them on,
it feels weird. It feels naked on them.
It does. So it's like, is anything working?
Yeah.
So the Daniel Penny thing is very interesting. It's very scary because what they're trying to tell you is there's no such thing as being a good Samaritan anymore.
Yeah.
Especially if you're white.
Mm-hmm. And that's the key. That's his biggest crime.
Yeah. He's white and the guy was black.
Yep.
And
in New York City.
And it puts us in a very, very bad place where I can't protect somebody if the bad guy's black because I have to worry about, do I go to jail or not? So I have to sit there and make a split decision.
Yeah.
And I think Jackson, Mississippi is no different.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to kill a black guy under any circumstances in Jackson, Mississippi. Mm-hmm. Period.
Yeah.
Regardless of if they're pointing a gun at you, which you shouldn't want to kill anybody.
Right.
But if it's me or you, it's going to be you.
That's right.
Every time. But if I see somebody harassing a kid or harassing somebody old, and I want to protect them, I can if they're black. If the guy's black, I'm sorry, man. I ain't going to jail over it. I got to pick my life over theirs, and I shouldn't have to do that. And that's what Daniel Penny situation he's been put in. He was protecting a group of people on a subway when this guy was going crazy, protecting himself too.
Yeah.
And he choked the guy out, and the guy died. Mm-hmm. And he's being charged with murder when it should be a clear-cut self-defense. And
it's like I think we mentioned Batman earlier. Like this is the city that would literally prosecute Batman for the same things, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, just like it kind of reminds me a little bit of obviously different circumstance, but like with George Floyd, all the medical issues this guy had, homeless, all this other stuff. He's got some stuff going on.
Same thing right here in Jackson, Mississippi with George Robinson with Anthony Fox and them. And those guys are black.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to kill these downtrodden black folks that lose their mind.
Yeah.
And try to kill you. It's like you just have to die.
Yeah.
It's either going to happen on the street or in jail, but you're not allowed to defend yourself.
And the resources again that they're wasting to go through this full trial, and I'm glad he's sticking up for it. I'm glad his attorneys are saying, "Hey, no, we're not. We'll see you in court, guys." And it's obviously it's right now. The jurors, it's gone to the jury, and there's some actually a new story out today that the jury is asked to re-examine 3 different pieces of evidence in regards to that. One of them being the video. That one of the passengers had taken. They call it the Vasquez video. When it was going on, they asked to see some body cam footage when the NYPD's talking to the guy, and NYPD doesn't really suspect him at this point. NYPD's being generally pretty cordial with the guy, and then his interview where he waived his rights because again he didn't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was trying to protect these people, and because they charged him with negligent and reckless homicide, right? And for those who don't know, reckless is a complete disregard for human life, essentially. But again, it still doesn't take the fact of your defenses of defense of yourself and defense of others is part of self-defense. People don't realize that. Now, in New York, their self-defense laws are not as strong as people like down here. Right. So
they also don't let you defend yourself with a gun.
Yeah. So like a lot of times they have, and I don't want to get too much into legal theory, but they have this called the duty to retreat, and which is essentially if someone attacks you, you first have to retreat, and you have to get to the point where you can no longer back up, and then you can attack them, right? Which is craziness, right? That's actually the common law. That's how it used to be in England, right? There's a reason we left that place. That's the kind of things they try to rely on is like that is just it makes no sense. So I have to almost be you killing me before I do it. And like I said, this guy was harassing.
Who determines what one person thinks is this is it. This is where I got to fight back.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that's different for everybody.
Yeah, well, there's what they call a reasonable and an objective point to that. So you have to have or there's subjective and objective. So you subjectively had to believe it, but then a reasonable person in the same or similar circumstance would also have to believe it. Is how is the instruction that is read to the jury.
We got to get back to FAFO around here.
That's right. And that's exactly what happened, right? Like that's what I talk about. It's time that this country returns to common sense. This is kind of those ridiculous types of prosecutions. And you mentioned this during the break. The Manhattan DA's office is just filled with people who I just consider completely unethical. They're liberal. You see their other policies, their selective prosecutions. It is despicable.
Daphne Yoren is the Manhattan prosecutor on this. Of course, this is Alvin Bragg's office.
It's Alvin Bragg, same guy.
The Trump witch hunt. In 2019, she gave a reduced sentence to a black man who murdered an Asian college professor who was simply just withdrawing cash from the ATM. What you remember? Stop Asian Hate.
Yes, I do remember that.
Do you know why that just went away? Why that dissipated into thin air?
Why did it go away?
Because all the Asian hate was coming from black folks.
That's right.
Oh crap! This doesn't fit the narrative anymore, does it? That is why they had to go away. Is they realized where all the Asian hate was coming from. It's like, we can't do this. Black people can't be racist.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she said that it was under the guise of restorative justice, and ended up giving him 10 years.
That's a Soros buzzword if I've ever heard one.
Oh yeah, giving him, that sounds like something Chokwe Antar Lumumba would say: restorative justice, equity, equality.
Until the justice is on him, but
we want a bigger slice of the pie than we've earned. Anyway, it says it was under the guise of restorative justice and ended up giving him 10 years for manslaughter after he was originally charged with murder. Now she's attempted to imprison an innocent man who protected a group of people on a subway. Also, Greg Price on X says, combine this with the fact that Alvin Bragg reduced 60% of all felony cases last year to lesser charges, yet his office is now trying to lock up a guy who protected people from those criminals. And, of course, look at what he did with Trump and made Trump's not even a misdemeanor, in my opinion, a felony.
Right. Exactly.
But because he's white.
They made up crimes and with Trump. And I really hate that this isn't, because if this was a federal crime, I think Donald Trump would, the first thing he'd do would pardon him. But unfortunately, Trump would not have the authority to pardon him because this is a state case.
Same reason he can't pardon himself.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I said, if this had been any other place, this guy would have got a community award for saving the lives of people on that train. Because you don't know what that guy was going to do. And, this guy's a Marine veteran. He's trained to protect others, right? He's trained to act in situations where other people freeze or anything like that. And he did. He acted in accordance with not only his training, but his morality. And, at the end of the day, can you sleep with yourself? As those things are asked, and you can't ask the jury to put themselves in his shoes. That's an improper thing to argue. But, this guy, at the end of the day, he saved lives. More people are alive today because of him, not more people are dead because of him.
Man, what these far left prosecutors and what the left in general is doing is they're trying to will racism into existence.
Yeah.
There's not enough of it, so they're trying to create it. And what I mean is, I don't mean false flags. I don't mean Juicy Smollett, false hate crime stuff. Mm-hmm. What they're doing is they're trying to turn people into racist.
They have to.
And this is how you do it.
Yeah.
This is how you make people look at black people differently.
Well, it's like you drive them to it, right? Because people are like, you're attacked because you're attacking me because of my race. Well, then I'm going to attack you because of your race. Then, right? Yeah. They feel threatened, and then they create the problem that they want.
They do, and then you got people out there, John Q. Citizen, sitting back there looking at this and reading this objectively, and says, "Well, I mean, why doesn't this happen when it's black people?
Yeah,
but it only happens when it's white people. Am I the problem? I'm not going to be the problem here. You're the problem.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start looking at y'all a little bit differently. It's the same negative side effect with DEI.
Yeah.
I heard this brought up the other day. What DEI has done is it's devalued black people who have earned their way in into good positions, because now when you see somebody black in a position that is a great position, a typically hard-earned position through meritocracy, you're like, how'd they get there?
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to look at people like that. But now when you know that people are being rolled out the red carpet just because they're black, or if all things are equal, people are getting picked because they're black, and not even minorities anyway. This thing, they redid a lot of these things because Asians were whooping everybody's butt.
That's why they had to take out the minority piece of it. It used to be just minority. They had to take that out because the Asians were taking over.
Yep, and it's and of course then the Mexicans ain't voting the way they want them to.
Yeah.
So this is strictly just like this is all to benefit black people, and it's making people have a disdain for black people.
Yeah, and it's
it's sad.
It is, and the idea, we went to this, whatever happened. You mentioned earlier about the people who deserve it, right? Justice Thomas actually talked about that in the Supreme Court cases regarding affirmative action. That was his big thing when he
affirmative
wrote
action was the word I was looking for earlier. It was affirmative action. They basically there was affirmative action was overturned in California or wherever, or because they were using it against Asians.
Exactly. And Justice Thomas actually had that exact same point that you just made. But to me, it's the interesting thing about how they've changed terminology, right? Because we used to talk about equality, but if you notice in DEI, right, it's not equality, it's equity. That's
unearned equity.
That is a completely different, thing, concept from equality. Yep. And they kept saying DEI is good. DEI is good. Well, I agree, diversity is good, and I believe inclusivity is generally good, right? I think they've corrupted the words, but equity is not. Like equity is communism, right? Like equity is not a good thing. Equality is, equity is not.
Let's take a break and come back. I want to harp on this for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
because I think it's a very, very relevant conversation to where we're at in society.
Absolutely.
Right now, we'll be right back with Matt Bishop on the Clay Edwards Show. Clay Edwards Show here with Matt Bishop on 103.9 FM WYAB. B. This segment brought to you by our friends downtown Jackson at the Manship. Guys, check out the Manship for all of your holiday catering needs, private parties. They got you covered. Whether it's 1 to 100 people, you need to have a little holiday gathering for your coworkers, friends, or family. Consider the Manship right there on North State Street, across the street from the Baptist Hospital. They have got, as far as their catering menu goes, man, they got some really cool stuff. You can get they got packages that include a protein, 2 sides, gravy, cranberry, relish, desserts. Feeds 8 to 12 people. Basically around from $350 to $450. The $450 is the prime rib to feed 12 people. That's not bad. And you're talking about high-end food here. Look, they got their charcuterie platters. I love a good charcuterie platter. I just love saying charcuterie.
That's just then hors d'oeuvres. I like saying hors d'oeuvres. Yeah.
They have the Italian almond salad. They have the sausage chicken gumbo, and they have the spinach and artichoke. Those are kind of your appetizers there that you can get in bulk for holiday catering. And then, of course, you just want us to get some meat from them. They got the whole turkeys, baked hams, and prime ribs. Looks like the whole turkey's 10 to 12 pounds. The baked ham is around 7 pounds, and the prime rib is sitting at around 5 pounds. It's also served with au jus. There's another word, au jus,
yes,
and horseradish cream. So, man, you can't beat that. I'm sorry, it's a 3 pound prime rib. So check that out. The Manship, and look, they got plate lunches, $15 for your plate lunch. And again, man, this is high end food down there. Mm-hmm. I mean, all locally sourced, phenomenal high end quality food at the Manship. They got a daily happy hour. Their pizzas, their stone fire brick oven pizzas, or whatever word I'm looking for here, are half off at happy hour.
Wow.
So get by there, try one of their made from scratch brick oven pizzas.
I think you start be a food vlogger here. Clay. So you have so many of these people, just all this food we talk about.
If I could get the correct oven name out of my mouth, I'd be doing fine. I keep butchering that. Stone fired pizza, stone fired oven. Anyway, whatever it's called. It's got a fire.
It's a big thing with bricks, and they put it in there, and it heats the whole thing up.
That thing.
Yeah.
Their pizzas are phenomenal. I'm a pizza connoisseur, and they're just right up there with some of the best pizza I've ever had.
Really?
It is really, really good. It makes me want pizza for lunch. But
you sold me on the Mexican earlier. Like I've been thinking about Mexican food ever since then.
I know that sounds really good too. That sounds really good too. It all sounds good. Just going on a food tour today. I'll be in a food coma later.
That's right.
All right, man. Look, we got about 4 minutes left here. Just circling back to this race conversation, where we've gotten at in America. I don't know how we get out of this, and I'll never forgive the Democrat Party for getting us into this. Mm-hmm. These are the same people who have tried to ruin my life and my ability to make an income because I like to speak on. I don't like having to speak on it, but I'm not afraid to speak on what's going on in Jackson.
Yeah.
I was talking to a girl yesterday, and her dad was murdered in another out of state in another blue city Democrat hellhole, much like Jackson, Mississippi. Her dad's white. Killer was black. Mm-hmm. And I was just talking to her she was asking my advice, my opinion on something to do with the media. And it really struck me that it's the same thing. There's going to be a jury there in Little Rock. Mm-hmm. You know, they're probably going to let this guy go, just like in Hinds County.
Yeah.
It's like, how did we get to this point where there's just, I'm my brother's keeper mentality. Oh, he killed somebody white. Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to let him go. But on the flip side, it's if somebody white kills somebody black, none of the facts matter. None of the context matters. You should have just died.
Yeah. Because
we're going to get ours one way or another. And whether that's true or not in every case, that's what it feels like, and that's what the DAs are shooting for. Facts of the cases be damned.
Yeah,
these George Soros funded DAs like Jody Owens in Jackson, Mississippi, Alvin Bragg, Fonnie Willis.
Yeah, well, that goes. You talk about George Soros. That goes to, the Democrats' plan, and the last. I would say for a while now is the whole divide and conquer, right? Separate people in classes. It's the thing that Karl Marx wrote about in his book, right? Is separate. He talked about the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, but it's the same concept of you can divide and conquer. If you get people fighting on themselves in regards to stuff like that, and you make sure you put in prosecutors to further put that out there and put people in defensive, like you have, unfortunately, Mr. Penny here. When you do that, it keeps people away from the issues that you want to get in under the radar, right? As a listener or someone mentioned earlier, it's like, what's the real thing going on, right? He mentioned that earlier, right? It's that same kind of mindset is that it gets people away, and I think you asked, what's going to bring it back? I think, I always fail to believe that we're too far gone in anything, because I think you can't just go into that mindset automatically. But I think, you look at this election of Donald Trump, right? And really some closures of those gaps, right? And he did just, historically well with Hispanics and blacks, whites, and what have you.
Yeah.
Is that we all found some issues that we all agree on with the economy and the border and all these other things. And, if we can focus on those issues and bring us back together, we'll never be to the point where we're perfect, because again, we're such a diverse country. It's just the nature of what's going to happen in a country as diverse as ours. But we can definitely get better, and I think it's by, again, making sure we're not focusing on those fringe issues, and again, taking out those those liberal prosecutors that are getting beat left and right. By the way, they're getting recalled.
Over a dozen have been removed.
Exactly.
In the last couple of years,
people are getting tired of it, right?
Yep.
And so I was talking about that return of common sense that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, it was like in California, was it Proposition 36 or 37 or whatever to start arresting criminals for stealing again?
Yeah.
Did you see where Kamala Harris wouldn't tell people how she voted on that?
I mentioned that. She said, it's too close to the election. I don't want to influence it. It's like, what? We need your position. It was ridiculous.
She was talking about her election.
That's right.
She didn't want to influence people one way or another.
Exactly.
She didn't talk about her election. Because I am curious, did she vote for her safety, or did she vote for your danger?
Well, real quick, the thing with that whole process is that was our problem created. They decriminalized it to begin with, and this is to me this was Gavin Newsom trying to be politically smart and being like, okay, they created the problem. He's not going to say that, and then this is our solution. We're going to come back and save you. We're going to be the savior to bring I would bring law and order back, right? It's like you can't put out the fire that you started and just be the hero.
No,
that's exactly what they were trying to do. That's why I think the whole thing with that proposition.
No, look, that's something I talk about a lot around here. Is like, no, you don't get to start the fire, put it out, and get a medal.
Exactly. That's exactly what Gavin Newsom is. He's pretty good at it, but I think even now people are starting to look past it.
It's the equivalent of Joe Biden closing the border now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Chokwe Lumumba deciding to actually hire a real police chief.
Yeah.
No. You don't get to break it and then try to fix it. I'm sorry, you don't. And it's not really fixing it anyway. I could do a whole show about that, as I always do.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you, brother. We're going to come back. We're going to land the plane for the day. Appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. We did a whole show without talking about Jackson for the most part. So, who says we can't do that around here?
Exactly.
All right, we'll be right back to land the plane. Y'all don't go nowhere. Sign off online.
Good.
All right, online audience, I appreciate all you guys. Fun show today. Like I said, just every now and then like to take advantage of not having to talk about Trump and Biden and Jackson and some of our regular topics. And I thought this CEO thing was a good one. And I do like getting people like Matt's here opinion on this race stuff because it matters. It matters. And I hope my black friends or listeners are paying attention because this is they're taking advantage of y'all with these left-wing positions to benefit themselves. And it's y'all are going to be the ones that pay the price for this.
And like I said, I think this last election though shows it's failing. Like people are starting to smart up to that, right?
Yeah.
Again, you see how much of the black vote that in record numbers, and he's going against a half black candidate or whatever, right? Who tries to fake her blackness a lot of times, but that's neither here nor there.
It's disgusting.
But people are like I said, they're starting to see past that. I think at least that's what I'm hoping.
Well, me too. I mean, and like I say, when we've gotten to this point in society where it's like so uncomfortable to mention black or race. Like anytime you mention it, but it's relevant because it's the context I always talk about. The context matters.
Yeah.
I'm not just blaming things on black people as a whole.
No.
But I'm saying y'all are being used as a pawn in this because everybody's hypersensitive about race stuff. That if you can just make it about race, nothing else matters.
Right.
In the eyes of
again,
black people.
it's hiding those other issues, right?
Yeah.
Because race is automatically going to get people fired up, right?
Yeah.
Because it's something you're inherent to you. So it's just automatically going to fire you up. So, keep them worried about that while we steal their money with this hand, right? Is the whole thing.
Well, it is, and like I say, it gets people fired up because white people don't like being called racist, especially ones who truly aren't. And we don't like, for some reason, being blamed for. I mean, we have a complex. It's a complex that most people have. So it's like, oh my God, somebody black said I was a racist. I need to go take a long look in the mirror and really figure out what I've done wrong in my life. That's just not the case. I'm not doing that because I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just pointing out a real fact here, and facts aren't racist.
Yeah, well, my sister, she came to this realization one day. She was, I think in college. She was talking to someone. Someone said they're from Jack. She goes, "Oh yeah." She's like, "Oh, that's the ghetto." And then the person's like, "That's very racist for you to say that about me and where I'm from." And she she was very, she felt very bad about it. And then, she started to think. She got a couple days later, like, wait a minute, that's a fact.
Yeah.
How are they going to make me feel bad about a fact? And then she completely did a 180 after that. I was like, no, I'm not going to let people make me feel bad for things like that.
Oh, I know. It's funny. Like a lot of the black people in Jackson get so mad at me for talking about Jackson. I'm like, well, I get to talk about it.
Yeah.
I was like, because it's been destroyed and it's my hometown. I get to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me that, well, it's multiple things, but for the most part, depending on the age of these people, they never knew Jackson as a nice city.
Yeah. I've never known it as a nice city.
It's
really.
just been this third world hellhole forever, but it's their third world hellhole. And be damned if you're going to talk about it. I'm like, well, y'all are the ones that turned it into a third world hellhole with your culture and policies. and I'm going to hold you accountable for
Well, you know
it.
what's sad? Again, I've lived in a lot of different places the last few years, but people always ask where you're from. Oh, I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. You're like, oh, are your parents okay? Because they hear about our water and the trash and all this other stuff. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gotten general concern in people's faces when I tell them from Jackson, Mississippi.
All right, online audience, signing off of here. Going to come back to the radio. Bye. I will see y'all back tomorrow. Peace out.